Girl Rising is a documentary like no other. It is a call to actions. We want to make Girl Rising into a social movement.
Intel believes that it is the fundamental right for every child across the globe to receive an education. And the 10 by 10 initiative is aimed at closing that gender gap when it comes to girls. We also believe it is the corporate responsibility for every company like Intel to create opportunities to empower these girls and create a brighter future for them. Today, thanks to the visibility that projects such as the 10 by 10 initiative have achieved, girls across the world are standing up and fighting for the right to an education. They are fighting to live a life free of violence and suffering. They are fighting for the right to learn, and they are fighting to live a life full of equality and opportunity.
Well, there you have it. It's crystal clear the digital spectrum is fast gaining momentum. And like the rest of the world, young women and children in communities are having to jump on the board. Educational initiatives have been established, just as the one that you've seen, focusing on the development of women young and old, girls, teenagers and administrators. One such initiative that you saw a moment or two ago, Girls Invent Tomorrow. There's also Girl Rising, looking to implore young ladies to pursue career opportunities in information technology or IT. Now, today we have Arthur Goldstuck, an information and communications technology expert, to share more light on this. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I think it's clear for anybody to see. Technology is fast taking over. We need to either jump on the bandwagon or we get left behind, isn't it?
There's no question about it. And it's exciting to see these kind of initiatives, which the one in particular, Girls Get Coding or Girls Go Coding, sponsored by Intel, to promote the idea that anyone can actually become a coder, someone who writes apps or programs and can get involved in the world of IT. It's not only the scientists and the boffins, anyone can do it. But the key is to start when people are young, when they're still in school, to give them the idea and the confidence especially that they can get into this world. It's open to everyone.
I fully agree with you. And I think capacity is key, isn't it? You have to groom the person so that they start thinking in a way that enables them to participate with information in a way that is not intimidating for them to engage with.
Yes, I think that the first lesson is not the coding itself. The first lesson is there are no limits and there are abundant opportunities. And those opportunities are going to keep growing as this digital world becomes a reality for everyone, not just for the haves. The have-nots are also going digital as we speak.
Tell us a bit more about that. You were speaking about the phenomenon of smartphones and how they're developing as well at a rapid race and becoming cheaper in price for people to afford.
This is the exciting thing. We're seeing smartphones, decent smartphones, coming down in price to below 500 Rand, or in African terms, below $50. And at that point, suddenly it becomes as affordable to buy a smartphone as it does a feature phone, because your average feature phone costs between 300 and 800 Rand. So why would you buy a feature phone if you can get a smartphone that's got all these amazing features on? The drawback, of course, is that you're using data, and data costs money. But there are more and more free Wi-Fi hotspots that enable people to use their smartphones, to download apps, and then hopefully not using too much data, using things like instant messaging, WhatsApp and WeChat in particular, taking off in a big way in this country, and accessible to anyone. They're easy to use, they're cheap to use, and suddenly you have cheap communication on smartphones becoming accessible to everyone. And because of that, we're seeing massive demand for smartphones, and the biggest shift ever in this country from ordinary basic phones to smartphones happening right now.
And I think that everything that we've spoken about, in fact, this morning, the advent of the smartphones, the technology gap somewhat narrowing a little bit, it all culminates in this, I think. This book that I have in front of me here, Tech Savvy Parenting, a guide to raising safe children in a digital world. Issues of capacity also for the child and the parent. It's all very important, but I feel like I'm picking topics from the sky. What is the book about?
The book is a collaboration with Nikki Bush, who's a parenting expert. In fact, she calls herself a creative parenting expert. I come from the point of view of where the technology is going and what the technology makes possible, but also the threats and perils of technology for parents in particular. So the book is first an attempt to warn parents about the dangers of technology. Secondly, is to tell them what to do about it, and from the point of view of being parents, not from being techies. So the starting point really to talk about tech-savvy parenting is to talk about parenting and the responsibility parents have to communicate with their children and understand what's happening in their lives. That's really the key to it. The technology comes second. But once you have that communication going, you also have a responsibility to understand the technology itself, to know what the children are using, to understand how WhatsApp and WeChat and Mixit and the new ones like Snapchat and apps like that, how they work. Instagram is suddenly a big thing amongst teenagers, sharing photos with each other, but without any restrictions, because their parents have no idea that Instagram even exists. So get with it, get to know what the children are using. And the book is an attempt to get parents up to date. So it gives a guide to all these apps as well. And then it also, on a positive note, tells parents that it's not all danger and peril. It's also about what these devices and these apps allow the children to learn and to almost get in tune with the world of the future in which they're going to be functioning and working. So really it's a case of don't bar the kids from the digital world, but share the journey with them.
And understand it. I think what's also very important, you've highlighted, is that it opens up means for communication. So you can speak to your children in the language they understand. So you can say to them, you know, Instagram is about this, that, and the next thing, and Facebook and Twitter is about this. And it's not just a foreign concept when you speak about these apps that you yourself don't understand. So it opens up the channels for you to communicate with your child in a language that they understand.
Exactly. It's exactly that. It's communicating with them, and it's communicating with them on their level, but also understand what they are doing and what the possibilities are of what they are doing. So just for example, if your children are on Facebook, you need to be on Facebook as well, and you need to be their friends. But it's difficult if you come into it from a point of view of they've been on Facebook for the last 4 or 5 years, and suddenly you come on and want to be their friends and start embarrassing them on Facebook.
And then they move to another platform because they can't have their mothers as friends or liking their pictures, etc.
Exactly. Yeah. But that won't happen if the ground rules are in place from the start. And when they first go on Facebook, and the legal age for Facebook, from Facebook's point of view, is 13. So under 13, they shouldn't be on Facebook. And there are many reasons for that, one of them being they can't really handle the emotional issues that emerge when there's cyberbullying, for example, or when they're exposed to undesirable content, which often happens on Facebook. So the first rule, of course, is the rule Facebook itself makes, but then from a parenting point of view, the rule is that you are now allowing a child onto Facebook, but these rules must be in place. And there are a number of rules, and we outline them in the book, not just for Facebook, but for all these social platforms or social media apps that children are going to be using on their phones. If they don't have the ground rules in place from the start, they're going to run wild, or they're going to be exposed to negative experiences which they won't be able to handle. And when you only come into it from that moment, then part of the battle is already lost, and you're going to be at war with your kids for a while you try to regain the upper hand.
Yeah. Are you finding that, you know, parents who aren't as tech savvy as perhaps you or Aki Anastasio, that they're battling somehow to keep up? I mean, for me, it was Facebook first, and just as I got a hang of how it works, Twitter and Instagram, I'm battling to keep up with all this technology. Is this the rate at which we're going, and are parents struggling?
People like Aki and myself also struggle to keep up, but it's part of our job to
that's encouraging. I mean, I don't feel so old school.
So our idea is that because it's part of our job to keep up, we can then share what we learn with other parents. And it is very difficult. It's not easy. A great example is SnapScan, which suddenly became the next big thing last year, and it's still the next big thing. How it works is children take a photo and send it to a friend, and it is deleted from their phone after 10 seconds. So they view it for 10 seconds. And the appeal of that for kids is that they can send something quite risque or naughty to their friends. Most kids don't do it in that way, but enough do for it to become an issue. And it becomes an issue, for example, of kids sending suggestive photos of themselves. And both kids can then get into trouble. They think the photo is deleted after 10 seconds, but if you have the right tools, you can actually retrieve it off the device.
If you munch it, there's that
exactly.
App.
That's the other one. You can screen grab it or screen munch it. And then the third thing that you can do is if you know that a snap scan picture is going to appear, you get another phone or camera, and as it appears, you take a photo. So kids who think that this is just a quick joke that's going to disappear are in for a bit of a surprise, because there are many ways to actually save that image. But that's just one example. But it's an example that parents need to be aware of, and that they need to make their children aware of. So the parents themselves need to know that the child has this app on their phone and what they're doing with that app. And that applies to every other next big thing that comes along.
Yeah. We'll have to leave it there for now. That's very interesting. I have learned something I did not know about that app. What is it called? Snap?
Snap scan.
Yeah, you see, it just goes to show I just very clueless when it comes to that. But thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and insights. This book is out. It's available at all good bookstores. I'm correct?
It's available in all major bookstores and should be in the smaller bookstores as well.
Fantastic. Tech Savvy Parenting, a guide to raising safe children in a digital world. If you are like me, and even if you are not, I think you do well to use this.
A quick correction, it's Snapchat,
yes,
not Snapscan.
Snapchat.
I just realized Snapchat. Snapscan is a payment app.
Okay.
Snapchat is the one that the kids are using.
There's a new
I
app
get confused between them all the time.
It seems like these apps are just growing by the dozens. But yes,
Exactly.
Let's keep up and let's keep our children safe as well. And also just to communicate with them in a language that they understand. They're so technologically savvy. So let's leave it there for now. Arthur Goldstuck, thanks again for joining us. Make sure that you do purchase a copy of this book for yourself. And if you're not a parent, buy it for a friend. Christmas just around the corner. Make sure that you get one of these as well. All right.